His parents are Taiwanese and have spent his high school years in Taiwan, actually, and later graduated from MIT with a bachelor's degree in mathematics and computer science. So, give a round of applause to one of our very own favorite son of Taiwan, Mr. Mark Chen. And our main speaker for the fireside chat, I'm sure, is no stranger to anyone here. Mr. Sam Altman is the CEO of OpenAI and chairman of Helion Energy. He has become known as the man behind the AI revolution and the legend in Silicon Valley despite his young 38 years of age. His vision to make the most cost of energy and intelligence fall to near zero is a way to create abundance and accessible for all. He is also the chairman of WorldCoin, a global UBI experiment, and Retro, a partial reprogramming longevity company. He was formerly the president of Y Combinator, where he expanded the scope of the program and mentored thousands of founders of many of the most successful startups of the last decade. As you can see, his influence on the world is no joke. So let's give us a round of applause to the favorite son of the world, Mr. Sam Altman.
Thank you, Shirley. And now over to our moderator, Professor Lin. 接下来把时间交给主持人林奇宏校长。
Okay, Mark, and Sam, welcome to Taiwan.
Thank you.
I know that you swing by Taiwan in the state for less than a day. Thank you very much.
Very happy.
So the previous talk feels like back to the classroom again.
Yeah, Andrew was my professor when I was an undergrad, so it does bring it back.
Okay, great. So in the next 25 minutes, I think I will go through the topics that the audience, both in this room and online, will be very interested in, which is your keys to succeed and your areas to implement and to apply, and ways to sustain and things to worry about. So maybe we should follow that order. But before I begin, you want to say a few words to the audience? Just say hello and how many times have you been in Taiwan?
Sure. Hello. This is my third time to Taiwan, and I wish I had a longer one. This is a very short visit, but it's been a great day so far. I think the AI revolution is going to be a massively transformative and positively transformative thing. Humans, through every technological revolution, have always worried about what the jobs are going to be like and what we're all going to have to do. And it turns out that human desire for new things and creativity is pretty limitless. And so we're going to find wonderful things to do. And what we're seeing with ChatGPT is people just use these AI tools to do more and do better, and they can take their ideas and bring them to life even faster. And it very much is an amplifier of human ingenuity and will, and I think it's, although always a little scary when the ground shakes, where we're headed is just probably much better than any of us can imagine. We'll all have tons to do, and we'll look back at this time as a sort of very barbaric age, and we won't believe how much better it's gotten. I think the rate of change will be fast. I don't think AGI is decades away, although it mostly depends on how fast Mark's team makes progress. But I think it'll be pretty quick. And each year more amazing things will be possible that weren't possible the year before. And that's also true even if we look backwards. Most of the world I think didn't predict ChatGPT a year or 3 years ago, and I think that will remain true. But I think we're on to something pretty deep and fundamental, and it'll be great.
Sure. Hey everyone, I'm Mark. It's nice to be back in Taiwan. I haven't been here in 4 or 5 years. It still feels like home, so glad to be back. Like Sam said, AI is bringing about a lot of change, but maybe one unifying characteristic of people who work at OpenAI is they're more optimistic than pessimistic about the future of AI. And while we care about safety a lot, we really think it'll bring about a better future.
Okay, thank you. So first, keys to succeed, I'll let you just say whatever you want to say. But I realized that you just were in the process of a world trip. So what's your main takeaway from this trip, and what you expected? Is there any critical feedback that you want to share with us?
Yeah, so Mark and I traveled together earlier this year on this crazy trip around the world, which was incredibly gratifying, tiring, but really amazing to see how throughout many countries, 6 continents, many cities, the enthusiasm about AI, the belief that the future is going to be much better, and more than that, what people were already doing today. GPT-4, ChatGPT, as it is today, when we look back at it, we're already embarrassed by it. Everybody's going to be embarrassed. When you got that first iPhone, you thought it was really cool, but now if you look back at it, those pixels are each this big, and it just didn't hold up that well. But it still pointed to something amazing, and now we have these supercomputers in our pockets. Even in that iPhone 1 era that we're in now, seeing the creativity of people around the world, the enthusiasm for where it's going to go, the businesses people are building, the way they're transforming their workflows, that was all amazing. It was interesting to see how different things are in different cultures in different ways, but the enthusiasm was pretty remarkable.
Yeah, not too much to add to that. It's just we went from place to place, and developers were coming to us with a wide diversity of apps, and I think they're really far ahead of the curve from what we had expected.
Yeah, that's good to know. So it seems that opportunities are everywhere, right? So based on whatever infrastructure and platform you have built, yeah. So that moves to my next question, which is the areas to apply, and also I think very importantly, if it is a platform like the electricity that Professor Ng mentioned about, specifically in what area that you think will be nourished in the next decades. And I know that OpenAI, you started with a NPO, but now you are a profit-making company, just a regular company. So what you point yourself, on these 2 roles, please?
You want to do new areas and I'll do company structure?
Sure, yeah. Which direction that we want to take OpenAI?
Or kind of what areas are we most excited about for people to build on?
Yeah. So, I have to plug the areas that I personally research. So I focus on multimodal and reasoning research. And I really think that these are the 2 most promising directions going forward. First with multimodal, right? We want our models to access what we see, what we hear, and to be able to generate novel content, that we couldn't generate ourselves. And I think this will really unlock a bunch of new interfaces for the model. And on reasoning, today the model still makes silly mistakes here and there, right? And we really want to get to the point where in order for the model to be truly assistive and robust, that it doesn't make these mistakes anymore and can really be kind of a sparring partner for ideas.
Yeah, I just want to underscore how big of a deal it is if we get reasoning to work. GPT-4 can reason the tiniest bit some of the time, but it clearly is not doing what we do, even what a child can do. And GPT-4, although it can do a very good job mimicking what humans have done, doesn't feel like it's going to go invent new science. And if we can teach these models to reason, then I think we can contribute to the sum total of human knowledge, and that's when the world will really transform. If we can make more scientific progress in 1 year with these tools than we could in 100 without them, the quality of life will go up for all of us so much. Some areas that I'm particularly excited about are education, healthcare, personal productivity tools, like what we see people do using these coding tools. That's been amazing. I think those will all be great. And then on the company structure side, so we started as a nonprofit. We knew that training these systems were going to be expensive, but we had no idea how expensive. And when it became clear to us that we were eventually going to have to spend hundreds of billions of dollars on building out infrastructure if we wanted to get to our goal, we knew that the nonprofit structure we started with wasn't quite going to work, but the reasons that we started with the nonprofit structure were still super important. We wanted to get the incentives right. We wanted a way to sort of return the benefits and the governance of this technology to society as a whole. wouldn't make sense for like one company to own electricity. If we were successful enough to invent AGI, it wouldn't make sense for one company, I think, to control that either. And so we came up with this idea of a capped profit. We have a nonprofit that governs us. We have a capped profit to still let capitalism do its magic for our investors and our team. But then beyond that, the nonprofit gets the excess.
Yeah, okay. Now, move to my third question is, what's the way to sustain? I know that, the computation costs a lot. And so people have been worrying about the energy consumption. And I also read upon one of your wish list in what you want to do next is to reduce the cost of energy and intelligence to near zero. So, what's the way to, make such kind of AI and their future development sustainable, both from the energy perspective and from the population of people's perception view. Yeah.
Fusion. And if that doesn't work, then solar. The energy needs as we look out are enormous. I think the cost of intelligence over time should trend towards the cost of energy. And there's going to be huge demand for intelligence and thus huge demand for energy. And if we can create abundant, cheap, clean, safe energy, and again, I think we're going to have this very soon with fusion at massive scale, like the scale that you need for everybody on Earth to get to enjoy the fruits of AGI. That's our plan.
Okay. Mark, you want to add something?
He's the energy guy. I can't. I can't.
Okay, all right. Good. And then, of course, the risk, things to worry. Okay, so is there any real things that we should be worried about, or there's just none?
All right, I'll go first. You can add. Look, things are going to go wrong. Things go wrong with every new technology. One thing that we think is important is to make our mistakes, not just OpenAI, but society's collective mistakes, while the stakes are low. So we believe in deploying the technology iteratively. We put these tools out in the world. We see how people use them and abuse them in ways we didn't think about. And every time we put out a new system, we want it to get better and better. So GPT-3 had many flaws. GPT-4 has less flaws. GPT-N will have even less. And the way that systems get safer and the way that we collectively as society get to steer them is this iterative process of using them in the real world, seeing what breaks, fixing that, using them a little more, making them a little better, a little more powerful, and that'll keep going. So I agree with what Andrew said. I think we have, as a society, successfully confronted very risky technologies and very powerful systems, institutions before, and we'll do that again. But it doesn't mean that things won't go wrong along the way. It doesn't mean there will be no disruption. Things will go wrong. There will be disruption. And that's part of why we think it's so important to give people in our institutions time to gradually adapt. And what some people in the field advocate for of basically build AGI in secret and then push the button one day, we think would be quite bad.
Yeah, the last 5 years of safety research has taught us anything, it's that you really can't do safety research in a vacuum. Right? The things that people were predicting that may be unsafe, some of those didn't turn out, right? And you really need this deployment process to have your AI be grounded in the world and then see how people use it. And I think this also underscores, why international cooperation is important here. We're here because we want to understand the norms, what's safe for one geography may not be safe for another. And we think, this is not just a US kind of problem to solve.
Yeah, that's really important. We have come together as a globe several times before. The IAEA for atomic energy is an example that we point to. There's several others. I think this is going to require another one of those because this is a technology that does have such global impact. And figuring out how we get the collective preferences of the world and make these decisions together, that's going to be super important.
Yeah. Do you worry about biased database or misinformation? Some of them are actually, could be really contaminated on purpose. So, do you have any thoughts about those?
You want to go first?
Sure. Yeah. Of course. Yeah. We worry a lot about bias, and I think this goes back to the point of figuring out what the different geographies define as bias, because it really varies from place to place. And misinformation, people will put incorrect content out there. Our model is trained to predict content on the internet, so there are mitigations we have to do after training to make sure that we reduce as much as possible the scope of misinformation regurgitation.
No two people on Earth will probably ever agree that one system is unbiased. And so one of the things that we think is really important is that we can make systems perform reliably, that society as a whole agrees on what the wide bounds are, and then in different contexts, different cultures, different subgroups, different individuals, there's a lot of ability to get the system to behave in a particular way. And that ability has worked far better than people have thought. So it's certainly true that if you just train a model on the raw internet, you're going to get something that most reasonable people would call biased in different ways. But with techniques that we and others have developed, like reinforcement learning from human feedback and a whole bunch of other things, you can surprisingly steer these models. And so you can kind of configure it how you want. OpenAI makes some decisions, but you can change it a lot. And this idea of empowering individuals, but setting the edges and also the sort of standard behavior well, I think is really important. And again, this has surprised even the experts in bias. They've said this just works way better than they thought. GPT-4 out of the box is like less biased than a human expert in these topics. And the configurability per user is pretty doable. Now, on the question of misinformation, that's a really hard one. It's hard to define that. It's hard to agree on it. I again come to this thing of the metric should be reliability. Like if you ask the model to follow a certain set of like ground truth facts, can it do that well? And I think a lot of Mark's team's work will turn out to be very important for that.
Yeah, people also worry about technology, especially high tech, will cause inequality or inequity for the society. So do you think the generative AI will worsen or maybe?
Absolutely not.
Yeah.
I think in general, technology is a force for equalizing. And if the common example everybody uses is a very poor person and the richest person in the world get the same iPhone. Mm-hmm. And that's not been, things like that have not been true throughout history. But if you think about a tool like AI, if everybody on Earth can get access to the best tutoring system ever, the best medical care ever, that helps everybody. But that relatively helps poorer people more than richer people who can already pay a lot for intelligence. Same thing with energy. This is like really true throughout history. If you study the decrease in the price of energy over time, that has always helped the poorest half of the world more than the richest half. So I think technology does this in general. AI will be a super strong force for it.
Okay. Now
There was a but.
Please.
The but is that all is only true if society makes the right decisions. You could certainly imagine a world where all of the compute power in the world belongs to one company or one small set of people. And in that case, it won't be such an equalizing force. But I don't think society's going to let that happen.
Okay. So do you worry about over-regulation by the authority or governments?
Not that much. It certainly could happen. I also worry about under-regulation. I think this is... People in our industry bash regulation a lot. It's like hard... We've been calling for sort of regulation, but only of the most powerful systems. We say, let the small models go, let open source go. Models that are like 10,000 times the power of GPT-4, models that are like as smart as human civilization, whatever, like those probably deserve some regulation. It seemed to me like the least controversial thing I was going to say this year, and I got still am getting bashed for it by the tech industry. And there's this reflexive anti-regulation thing. But regulation has been not a pure good, but it's been good in a lot of ways. You know, I don't want to have to like make an opinion about every time I step on an airplane how safe it's going to be. But I trust that they're pretty safe. And I think regulation has been like a positive good there. Same thing for medicines or whatever. So it's possible to get regulation wrong, but I don't think we sit around and fear it. In fact, we think some version of it's important.
Okay. You don't worry about it, Mark.
Well, on regulation, I think Sam said a lot, but just kind of going back to inequity, whether AI causes more inequity, I think there's two examples that come to mind. First, code generation. You know, code generation helps people who are, you know, learning to code or just kind of beginning at coding much more than it helps an expert who kind of already knows the language. And another thing, like diagnosis, right? Like, we've already seen examples of people who don't have access to medical care and type their symptoms into ChatGPT and sometimes come up with diagnoses that explain, you know, their symptoms. And that's not something that maybe someone with the access to the best doctors will need to worry about.
Okay. Usually I don't ask the following question to the people like your ages, but I'm very interested in asking, do you have any words to our next generation?
Well, yeah, I think, you know, it's important to work really hard and have conviction, right? I think these are two of the qualities that have really made OpenAI succeed. And conviction is really important. Like, you're not going to build AGI if you don't believe that it's possible. And I think from the very beginning, we've believed that it was possible. And I think that was one of the biggest strengths. You know, everyone else in the industry was saying, you know, hey, scaling is not the right route here. You can't do it. And we just kind of had that conviction and that optimism. And of course, you do have to work hard. Yeah.
I think there has not been a luckier generation than the generation coming of age right now, like probably in all of human history. The tools, the sort of like wide open field of possibilities, the chance to sort of do anything that in a way that was just not possible before. There's this fundamental new force in the world, and this is the like coming decade where the key elements the key directions will be set. And kind of along with what Mark was saying, the lesson that I wish I had learned earlier in my life, but I now deeply believe, is you can just do stuff. Like, you can just start a company trying to build AGI. A lot of people will tell you that's like a really dumb thing to do. They'll say it in even meaner ways than that, but you can still just do it. And this is like a very powerful thing to like deeply internalize.
Okay, well, Mark, I think you want to elaborate a little bit more on that because you have experienced Taiwan's education system, 新竹实验高中 graduate. So, you know, think back. So, what's a comparison between the education, elementary education you have received in Taiwan versus what you have received in the States?
Yeah, that's an interesting question. I guess, I mean, I feel like I also had it very lucky because, you know, the American education system, it's a little bit more relaxed, right? It gives you kind of the room to explore your interests. But I was a pretty undisciplined kid coming into Taiwan. I think Taiwan really did teach me, like, hey, you really have to focus, you have to be disciplined. So I think I really got the best of both worlds here.
Yeah, you are traditionally defined 坏学生, best students, right?
Oh, sorry?
Kind of thing. You are one of the 坏学生, best students. Yeah, by that regard.
I have a story about Mark. Mark is one of like the most loved managers at OpenAI, which is a very rare. I mean, not all managers at OpenAI are loved. Mark also hadn't like done much research-based stuff before OpenAI. And when Mark took on managing the team, which also is probably the team of people that are the most difficult to manage in all of OpenAI, he was like, I'm gonna learn to be a manager, and just started reading books and started talking to people. And it was just like, and like threw himself into this, like, I'm gonna go learn a totally new thing and get really good at it, which almost no one does in their career beyond a certain point. Most people are just like, yeah, I'll figure it out as I go. Like, it can't be that hard, whatever. But the spirit of, like the discipline to really study something hard when it's a new thing in any phase in your life, even if it's a category very different than stuff you've done before, I think pays off hugely.
Okay, we've got about 90 seconds left. Any words you want to, share with the audience?
On any topic?
Any topic.
Does someone want to yell one out and we'll respond? That's not going to work. Okay. Yes. How do you create a product or service to be localized without restricting its potential? The proper guardrails? Oh, so one of the things that I think, that's a great question, thank you. One of the things that I think is so surprising about this kind of technology relative to what people thought, and Andrew mentioned this earlier, is if you just prompt the models, if you just tell it how you want it to behave, it can do a pretty good job. And that ability, I think, is going to get better fast. So as we look to future versions of GPTs, the ability to control the models and get reliable behavior, to localize it, to have it follow what you want, you'll really just say in natural language, here's what I want you to do, and it'll do it. And speaking of equalizing forces, the fact that you get to just like tell the computer what you want in natural language, which everyone knows how to do, and it will do it, is this amazing new thing. So it works a little bit with GPT-4. It'll work much better with future models. But we're heading to this world where it's like the Star Trek computer. And you just say, this is what I want, and the thing happens. And for all questions like that, how do I get it to do this? How do I get it to do that? The question is, the answer is, you just tell it, and it'll do it. And I think that's going to be a very, to all of us, that's going to feel like a very new thing. Kids that are growing up now will expect it, but that'll be how we deal with computers.
Yeah, I want to borrow your words to finish this sector, which is to potentiate the benefit and to mitigate the risk. Thank you both very much. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much to Professor Lin, to Sam, to Mark, for giving us this very thought-provoking discussion that was very inspiring. Thank you. 再次谢谢校长以及 Sam 以及 Mark 带来非常精彩的分享。And we do have a QA at the very end, okay? And before we do that, to introduce our second keynote speaker, please join me in welcoming Shirley back to the stage again. 接下来呢，我们再次有请郭晓玲执行长为我们介绍今天的第二位主讲人 Shirley.
Last but definitely not the least is our next speaker, Dr. Jay Lee. Dr. Lee is a Clark Distinguished Professor and Director of the Industrial AI Center in the Mechanical Engineering Department of the University of Maryland, College Park. He is leading AI Data Foundry for advanced data-centric AI research for diversified industrial systems. Previously, he served as an Ohio Eminent Scholar, L.W. Scott Alter Chair, and University Distinguished Professor at the University of Cincinnati. He also served as Vice Chairman and Board Member of Foxconn Technology Group. In addition to receiving countless awards, he also published Industrial AI book in 2020. Smart Manufacturing Magazine named him a top visionary in 2016 and one of the most influential professors in 2020. I cannot possibly name all of his accomplishments in the time that's here, so without further ado, please welcome Dr. Jay Lee.
让我们欢迎工业大数据专家，马里兰大学讲座教授及工业人工智慧中心主任李杰博士。Next, we're going to have Dr. Jay Lee, Clark Distinguished Chair Professor and Director of Industrial AI Center, University of Maryland. And he's also quintessentially world's leading expert in industrial big data. 那这个李博士讲完之后呢，就是我们最后的 Q&A 时间哦。到时候都欢迎各位贵宾可以提问，我们也会再次的邀请今天的所有的讲者回到舞台上。And now over to Dr. Jay Lee. Please give him another big round of applause. Thank you.
Yeah. Well, thanks Terry and the Yongling Foundation for inviting me to share with you some real examples that we have to do for industry, right? AI is always interesting, but you also need actual implementation, right? So today I will share with you what are our experiences and what are the gaps that we need to move forward, right? But especially look at the future trends of a data-centric economy when systems are connected, the modern world. We have lots of data, more than you and I needed. But how much data is useful and how much data is usable? Not all the data is usable, right? And second of all, do we have to use a $1 million investment for AI to solve $1 million problem? Or can I use $1,000 AI spending to save $1 million industry saving? We call this a non-traditional asymmetric machine learning. We learn from the war, right? Asymmetric warfare. $3,000 drone can damage hundreds of $1 million ship. Why not AI? So let's look at the trend, right? AI started in 1955 during the natural language processing, so human voice data, image data. Then machine, robots, machine tools, chillers, elevators, jet engines, wind turbines, EVs. So eventually you have a 3D, right? This is a large language model, more and more now coming. But next is a large knowledge model. Knowledge is broken. Your knowledge different from mine. But if we work for same companies, we gotta have overlap, right? So how do we cherry pick the best one to assemble them to the right one? Of course, when you combine all the source of data from history, from sensors, then eventually the data becomes so rich. And then the question is, do you want to use all the data to do always deep learning, or you want to have a simplified learning? Eventually, of course, from many companies like NVIDIA, for example, say, oh, I'm going to sell AI as a platform. Maybe one day data center going to have a GPU, so everybody can do AI in the cloud space. But that's what the foundation platform is, right? If that's the case, the question will be, how about this? I got hundreds of thousands of jet engines flying in the air every day. I flew in 777-300, probably either GE 90 engine or Pratt & Whitney 4000 engine, right? So eventually our GE last week is, oh, we're going to have a 90,000 engine flying and a 50,000 wind turbine. Wow. So you got a bulldozer everywhere and EV like Tesla everywhere and modern foundry. You got all the modernized 7 nano, 5 nano, 3 nano, all the very expensive conveyors and Daifuku and all the conveyor and all the expensive machine UVs. Everything connected, right? So the question will be how much we know, how much we don't know. So even the question will be domain knowledge. We, human beings, we always know what we know, right? So we drive experience. For example, Kaizen, continuous improvement. It's based on alarm, create problems, then we continuously improve. One day, we have a good model I can avoid. Unfortunately, baseline is different, the experience cannot be used. Or I can learn, but I cannot duplicate. Of course, more and more for large systems, for example, like you have a aircraft flying in the air, if weather continue changing, but how can I save fuel based on large data sets coming in, right? Wind turbine, the mountain turbine, at night, you have a low temperature, high humidity, you have ice accumulating on the blades, reduce your power generation. You got like ship, right? We worked on a ship before, right? You have a weather, wind, and the wave, the 3W, continually changing. We can navigate, learn the drag force, and save 6% of fuel per year. 7 or 8 years, you can buy a new ship. You got a fish farm, how to measure the bacteria, and how can the pH value of the water eventually have a healthy fish. So all the invisible we don't know, but eventually how to avoid them. So this is what we're talking about, right? How to kill the blue area, which is going to be a large return in centuries to come. because you and I probably will be gone, but airplane continue coming. So therefore, one way is to need better data representation. When we have large data, we have less data. The method is very different. With less data, I can control design experiments. With large data, wow, I can do all kinds of clustering, but I can do topological analysis, right? But the problem is the purpose, not the problem, not the process. So we take, for example, TSMC data sets, this is about 800 data sets, 800,000 data sets, right? So this is the wafer yield. After that, so what's the purpose? I don't want to see all the problem. I want to see what can I do to avoid that. Wow. So I can simplify that to a very simplistic view, how to take action. Now, to understand the problem, action is more important, right? So eventually, we're talking about the data set now. In industry space, the knowledge is broken, right? So we have a large data. If someday you have useful data, congratulations, you're in a great shape. Unfortunately, most of the time, we have useful data, but not useful, right? You donate the blood, you have HIV, you have hepatitis B, your blood is not usable. Useful, but not useful, same thing. Eventually, sometimes you have useful data, but not useful. I'm sorry, bite the bullets. Use it, squeeze it, right? Every juice counts. Do something. Or, of course, you should not continuously collecting data not useful. Unfortunately, lots of companies today continue doing that every day because they think someday there's a magic AI will be there to solve their problems. Right? So therefore, we know something well. We build a response service approximation called RSA. This is my problem. I can model it, right? So eventually, I have lots of data for the baseline. I build it. But during the actual applications, might be local problems. It's okay. I only select those useful and useful data, small data sets. I can build much better, much useful decision-making process, right? So eventually, we're talking about what are recent advances. We normally learn from the last 20 years from old machine learning world, right? And now we're saying, well, we have a lot of non-traditional problem now. We have to start using asymmetric machine learning. So this is something we call intelligent metrology system. If we can take a data-centric system as a metrology system, today, if somebody asks you about metrology system, you think about it has to be a laboratory, very protected environment, very precise machine, control temperature, everything perfect. No, I'm talking about metrology is a measurement system, power by the hour. You measure jet engine flying now. You cannot take off engine, right? Wind turbine running in the field. How do you measure relationship between the wind and the power generation? So you have lots of data coming in, sensor, but we got to create a large model from the broken source. Humans, digital twins, design, big data, simulations, right? Models. Eventually, we give the human final tweak to make decisions, right? So machine learning, AI augmented metrology in the real world, real time. So eventually, one thing we're talking about is transfer learning. When you have a large number of equipment, large number of fleet in the field, you cannot always collect all the data, train all the model. That's not economically viable. Even you can do so, the time will be wasted. Eventually, transfer learning becomes a very common way to do it, right? Of course, some domain, some machine work on welding, some machine work on painting, but how can I see my motor behaviors, right? Same thing for the vehicle. I have a vehicle. If you're a Tesla driver, I am. I also bought a Tesla insurance. Tesla hired three of our PhD before, 2 left, 1 joined Wall Street, another one still there. Hey, this is exactly vehicle to vehicle, human to vehicle. How I drive, my behavior. When you buy insurance from Tesla, they can judge you based on aggressive driver, how you take turn, how you signal lights, right? Eventually, this is exactly what happened. Tesla announced, called the FSD beta version V12, August 26. I think you remember 2 weeks ago, the stock valuation, 10%, $860 billion, right? because it saved 90% of code. They use good driver's behavior to train the system, not just use the camera itself. That's why sometimes they say, oh, I really don't need a LiDAR, because they have all the data from a driver who bought insurance. Well, I'm one of them, right? This is a natural way of thinking, how to borrow things, accelerate the training, right? So eventually, one day, your phone has about a dozen sensors, EV has about 10 times, right? You have a lot of sensors generated from your driving. When I hit a pothole here, I label the GPS and some of my vibration sensor. The guy behind me, 2 miles ahead of you, pothole, be careful. It's going to happen. Today, like Waze, you have to input by manually, right? So in the future, you're going to have an automatic generated label data based on the moving equipment, moving machine, right? Could be satellite based. So I'll give you some case study because time. So you have 4 areas, which call factory, facility, fleet, and field. I call the 4F. Typically apply to all industry, like oil field, right? Wind turbine field, right? Factories, foundries, right? Hospital facility, etc., etc. So let's use one example: high volume manufacturing, right? Semiconductor. We've been working on semiconductor for over 20 years, right? Intel was my first founding member. How we started? They give me a vacuum pump. Wow, lots of vacuum pump in clean room, right? But when vacuum pump fail, that's not good. How can we worked on the Fab 22, Chandler, Arizona, right? That was the first fab, right? We worked on. So after that, you start moving in to SRC, Samsung, CVD, and AMD, Sematech, then the Global Foundry, Applied Material, Etcher, and the Lam, right? And Hitachi High-Tech. We train a TSMC engineer. And today we're still working with Winbang, UMC, and of course Hitachi High-Tech and Applied Material. Over the last 20 years, we learned big lesson. But in a lot of fab industry, right, in the modern fab, 7 nano below, yields big challenges. We still using design experiment, DOE. It's a good method, but it's very hard to reproduce it. You do, I do, very different. When one parameter come, then we have to rechange it. Eventually, we develop a new digital twin method. Faster, better, right? So eliminate try error. So this is very important. If you can speed up the calibration, you have a better volume production, higher yield. Of course, you make more money. There's no doubt. Can't imagine, right? Second thing is when I was in Vice Chairman Foxconn, Terry, founder, right? He said, "Hey, let's do something to make our manufacturing become more transparent, more predictable, right? You can predictable." That's what he said. So the FRI was formed 2018. So we had the opportunity to work with a business unit and say, "Hey, let's do something. We connect a machine for the right reason. We can monitor. We can predict." So one of the things we've done is that one of the things called stream of quality. In Terry's old dictionary, there's a 6 flow in manufacturing. He always say there's a material flow, people flow, and process flow, which are real, visible. But there's a money flow, information flow, and technology flow. They are virtual, right? But the 6 flow together, you can really know what's going on. You can pay worker every day. Can we all say that, right? That's exactly X. It's a stream of X. I can, using blockchain, stamp exactly each process, right? Human, materials, machine, method. Eventually, I can look forward, predict. I can look backward, trace root cause. When customers they don't have to have a stage inspection for your product. Don't worry. You got the product, you can trace back, you can look forward. SMT line, you can save lots of money, right? So one factory we did was a World Economic Forum. We said, well, let's try something. So a lot of people walk around the factory every day. They also worry about Endong alarm. Well, why you worry about it? So we can predict, you can save a lot of redundant labors. That has been famous, right? That's kind of lights out factory. Lights out factory means worry-free factory. Not no people factory. There are people there, but no worry, right? That's what it is. Of course, eventually, so far, there are about 132 lighthouses worldwide, but Barcelona has 6 of them. I know internally, probably I stepped down board member last year. I think the internal probably 20 to 30, similar, but certified by experts. But second case, large fleet base, right? So you have a wind turbines. Wind turbine, wind keep changing every second, every minute, right? So rather to monitor so many wind turbines, you're going to have a huge data center. No, you're not going to do that. I'm sorry. We rank wind turbine based on every wind speed changes. I can rank them how good, like a professor ranks student. I give a quiz 1, quiz 2, quiz 3. After 3 quiz, I know top 10%, bottom 10%. Exactly. After different wind speed, I know exactly the left side is a high performance turbine, right side is a low performance turbine. Then I try more wind speed to see lowest performance. Then I do machine learning, only for 1 turbine. Save me lots of time. This is a pattern. Yes. I presented it to GE last week. I said, wow, this is interesting. So eventually, we have different power generation. You have different wind speed, like time machine clock, right? I generate, so I issue wind speed. I can look at the difference. Eventually, identify those low performance ones. I don't have to use the data all the time. Eventually, I can schedule based on the power loss. I can maximize my maintenance efficiency, and I can eventually schedule the crew, the vessel, the time, and the weather, of course, right? If the offshore turbine weather not good, the vessel cannot go out. So again, this is very interesting outcome, and it's been adopted by quite a few companies. So eventually, left side is the data side, right? Right side is decision side. You can integrate into one model, digital twin, right? Okay, time. Hospital, ICU. We lose patient every day. I lost my brother-in-law several months ago. Brain, we call brain TBI, traumatic brain injuries, right? So if you have patient push into they drill a small hole, put a sensor in there, then you have all the sensors monitoring you, right? Eventually, alarm happen, then nurse rush. The doctor coming too late, gone. Most of people. Doesn't matter, you're rich man, you're poor man. Same equipment, same machine. I found maybe a nicer room, but lots of data. There's no intelligence, let's be honest. The plug and pray is what it is. Right? Today. So eventually we say, oh, there's a human expert out there, called SME, subject matter expert, but there's a ICP pressure, EEG signals. We can use a different type of a fast way to compare different patients, right? Because you have a 20 patient tonight. I cross training, I can find out the high risk patient. Yeah, the TBI, ICU. So doctor can look at the number, tweak. This is a overweight person. This is a different child, as a kid. This is a different old people. So I can find those features that especially important for those patients, tweak them, right? Eventually make this become more customized from human side. Then I can I took a 43 ICU real patient data. We work with the Cincinnati Children's Hospital, which is number 2 in the country. First one's Boston, second one's Cincinnati, right? So you can look at 43 patients, some recover, most people moderate recover and severe disability. But if you look at those people who passed away, some of them had a very strong survivability, but the family didn't know. They pulled the plug. That's what happened. So eventually, took 3 years. Doctor said, don't publish. 3 years later, said, you know what? This is very useful suggestion, not decision. Decision still doctor and the family. So this is interesting. 2 weeks ago, I went to Japan. Japan every launch.
Flight boosters, ignition, and liftoff.
So after launch, then they destroy it, right? Because of certain failures. Right? So eventually, the reason I know. So Japan NASA called JAXA finally said, oh, let's get data together. Let's do a competition. They did. So they say, okay, we got a lot of solenoid, lots of valve, a lot of happening. So can you detect something? It's not normal. More and more rocket going to be reused, right? Like SpaceX. So it's very important to understand life cycle system. So based on you need domain knowledge, right? We are mechanical engineer. I don't know about you. The valve, from the moment you trigger, by the time they open, 0.1 second is very important. Then eventually you have a control, PDF, PID loop, whatever. So if we take a dynamic time warping from the 0.1 second, you can quickly develop a good reference baseline. Then you have a similarity-based approach. So our team, 100% number one. Of course, team 2 is 9.94. Even 1% is not allowed, right? 0.1% even not allowed. Why? You're talking about aerospace. So my PhD student, he was sent by Komatsu, Japan for 5 years of PhD. 1 year ago, he didn't know anything but diesel engine. Now, he's a good data expert, especially machine learning, using non-traditional, right, the time. So previously worked as a Taiwan other company like Haiwan, Eric, right? So they demonstrated Industry 4.0 board school 2016. And the Coaster machine, they had a soul. When they sell the machine to other, people have to start watching the machine, cost money. I say, can you remove the worry out? Finally, we use a self-organized map and eventually can predict. So that the company from 2013 ranked number 10 became number 1. And there's the sleep, from sleeping management, eventually how to analyze what the quality of sleep. Right? So I mean, there's a few examples just from. So finally, summary, big time. Highly connected system, like what we're talking about industry, lots of data, it's true. But we got to know how to select the usable data. Right? Otherwise, you'll be buying all the expensive equipment. Probably you cannot save money. Number 2, traditional, non-traditional machine learning, sometimes much useful, sometimes, not all the time, right? Depend on the knowledge domain you have. The similarity-based approach often improve machine performance, right? But in a systematic way, you cannot do try and error. So one of the challenges of the future for AI industry is that 20 years later, 10 years later, how does young people going to maintain your software? Big problems. Big problems. I don't even know how you code. I couldn't even debug. Big problems. You need to have some life cycle system in place. Not forget about how true, So it's very important to. So one thing is that AI is the actual implementation with speed and scale and systematic approach, not try and error. So that's exactly what my center is. I train engineers. I'm teaching industrial AI. All my students have to do jet engine, battery, semiconductors, right? Pump. All students. I don't know. What? Do it. You do it, you have confidence. You know. So eventually, you have data, computer science, domain is a purpose. But discipline is a process. How you learn, how you do. It's not by surprise. Right? So of course, this is a book, probably 2 years ago, but it's time to revise again. With a lot of new stuff going on, it's true. So previously, I also published a few books in Taiwan. The first one is by Commonwealth, and the industrial big data, and also industrial AI. I think it's some good reference if you're interested. Finally, you can look at our website, get some more information. Okay, thank you for your time. Yeah.
Thank you so much to Dr. J. Lee. Dr. Lee, please remain on the stage. Thank you so much. 非常谢谢李杰博士非常精彩的分享哦，请李博士呢在舞台旁边稍后一下下哦，等一下呢就是我们最后的 Q&A 了。Having heard so much from our speakers today, Andrew, Mark, Sam, and also Jay, and also Professor Lin. Ladies and gentlemen, we're going to move on to the last session of the day, Q&A. 最后呢，我们要再次的有请所有的讲师哦，回到舞台上来，那看看我们现场的贵宾有什么样的问题。那先请这个博士可以就坐 ，Please take your seat on the stage, Dr. J. Lee, and also our moderator 林启宏校长，有请。 Professor Lin Chi-hong, please also join us on the stage. And our keynote speaker, Dr. Andrew Ng, 有请文达博士 and Mark Chen from OpenAI, please also join us on the stage. And of course, Sam Altman, please also join us on the stage. 要有请 OpenAI 的创办人 Sam Altman 到台上来。Thank you so much. And we'd like to firstly go to the experts. Yeah, we got some experts joining us today. 那接下来想先请这个前方我们的这个专家区，今天有很多专家也来到现场，我们想先请这个专家来提问。Any questions from the experts? I can see 有看到台科大的卢锡鹏教授，是不是？我们请这个教授也来帮我们问个问题哦。We would like to firstly go to Professor Xipeng Liu of National Taiwan University of Science and Technology. Professor Liu.
Hi Sam, may I ask you a question?
Sure.
Okay, I'm a professor in National Taiwan University of Science and Technology, and as you know, Taiwan is not big, or Taiwan is not big enough with limited resources. So I believe the AI positioning is equally important to the AI competence. So my question is, how should university focus on the AI instruction and the research to be best positioned in next 10 years, especially for universities in Taiwan?
I can try, but I think Mark or Andrew would be better at that.
Do you want to go first? Go for it.
I think familiarity with the tools goes a long way. And then I also think that although it is still difficult for most universities to compete with the compute resources of the industrial efforts, we're heading into an era again where we've squeezed the easy juice out of scaling, and there's extremely important research to do from how we get to the current models to much more powerful things. So I think we're heading back into a period where research that will happen in universities will be critically important.
Yeah. Andrew? Sure. Actually, I want to share something about one change that I'd love to see in the education system, not just universities, but also K through 12, which is I think everyone should learn to code. And I did not feel this way 2 years ago. But I think today, one thing that's changed about society is everyone has data. Big companies have data, small companies have data. Even a high school student running a biology experiment has data. And with generative AI and prompting, what Sam said about just tell a computer what you want, and then, maybe someday, not yet there today, but someday it'll just happen. But so the value to AI has gone up for individuals because everyone has data, and the barrier to getting it to work is lower than ever. So in my mind, just in the last year, I think it flipped, and I now believe that everyone, all K-12 students, I think it's worth getting everyone to learn to code just a little bit. A lot of programming classes send you down either the game development track or the web development track. The programming exercise like build a game, but almost no one needs to build a video game. I mean, some people should, but not everyone. But I think almost everyone should in the future be empowered to use AI. So that's one change I'd love to see in education.
Yeah, I want to expand on Sam's answer a little bit. So I think there's two lessons from scaling laws. One is the lesson that we took, which is you want to continue to push on scale. But I think the other lesson is that experiments at small scale have big implications for what happens at large scale. And I don't think enough kind of academic institutions have embraced this. Like, there's so much work you can do at small scale because scaling laws tell us how to predict what happens on large scale.
We have another.
Yeah. Well, to us, right, there are several levels of, we're engineering, we're not computer science, right? So we teach AI. Principle, you can take many courses from other departments. Practice-based. So we use real data from industry. Open source, yes. For data challenge, yes. Then some company donate to us, like Seagate, yes. Then we use data to teach students how to do it. Third level, project-based. Some students say, you go to your lab, find your own data sets. A lot of people, they love algorithm. They have no idea how to get data. Find your own data, right? Go to company. Wow, and then you say, oh, geez, it's very difficult. Well, that's what the real life is. You cannot wait for data to come to you. The fourth level, professional. Teach other people to do 1, 2, 3. I go 4P, right? Principle-based, practice-based, project-based, and professional-based. 4P. Then you can teach other people to do 1, 2, 3. So in the university, you should do 1, 2 at least, maybe 3. Some intern, yes.
Yeah, well, I have a related question to this. AI is like a huge magnet in the campus. We suck in all the young talent, like this guy here. So I just wonder, from your perspective, because the science and technology have to kind of advance in coordination. So, do you have any comments on this?
I think it should be a huge magnet. I think, the smartest, most ambitious young people are always pulled to the frontier. This is the frontier right now. There have been other frontiers in the past. There'll be other frontiers in the future. But I think it makes total sense that this is the magnet. And I think that's great. Because it's by concentrating all the talent when a new frontier opens that we figure out how to make all the progress.
Yeah, so just follow your intuition.
Don't fight it.
Yes,
it's good.
Yeah, okay. Mark?
Yeah, not much to add to that. Much better AI magnet than finance or trading.
Yeah. I can also extend that into the population literacy. I come from a healthcare background, so I know health literacy is very important if you really want to deliver good health or achieve good goals on this. Now, what about AI literacy? Do you think the population awareness? What's your comment on this?
I mean, there's like 12-year-olds that can use ChatGPT more effectively than most adults. It's amazing.
Mm-hmm.
Like, this is a technology that I think is so intuitive to use that people who grow up with it will come up to speed extremely quickly, and people who didn't grow up with it but use it for the first time with just a little bit of effort can still figure it out quickly. Developing the core models, that still is going to take a lot of expertise and like a lifetime of focus, but using the tools. And I think this is the trend of technology. Computing gets easier and more intuitive over time. If you think back about like when we had to program computers with punch cards, that's pretty bad. Command line, not much better. The first GUI, pretty good. Touch phone, even better. But a model, like a computer you can just talk to, a language interface, even better. And so I think it's just gonna spread super fast.
Yeah. Jay, do you have comments on this?
Well, I think the model itself, right, always continuously improve. But I think we need to also learn how to integrate as a broken domain knowledge to enhance the model.
Okay. Andrew?
No, actually, I think I read some stats about what percentage of Americans have tried ChatGPT.
A lot. I don't know the number.
But so I was wondering, I felt like a lot. I was wondering, how come there's still people that haven't tried it yet? Let's get them all to try out the large language models. If any of you haven't done so yet, tried out the large language models, I'll just jump in and try it. I think I can promise on behalf of OpenAI probably that you won't break OpenAI software no matter what you type into it. So just try it and get familiar with it. Is that okay if I promise that?
It's probably fine, yeah.
Okay.
And if you do break it, we want to hear about it.
Yeah.
So Mark, in your family members, have you done a survey that what's the proportion of them know about ChatGPT and actually use them?
Oh yeah, they're definitely early adopters. Yeah, we have partner programs within the company where friends and family they try out our models first, and yeah, they're very happy users.
Okay, all right. So maybe we should move to the next one. Your microphone is now.
Okay, I'm sorry about that. I see our very own Michael Gong, Chief Information Officer of Honghai Group. So maybe Michael, you also have a question? 那接下来我们想要请我们鸿海的资讯长、洪培元执行长也帮我们提一个问题。
Yeah, I think the question is to all the masters. As you all talk about the generative AI, and it's so pervasive into daily business life. What are the most significant ways of hardware and the compute will shape the future of large language models and their capabilities? And also, what do you anticipate hardware lips will be in the next 5 to 10 years for large language models?
Maybe Mark, I'll save you to the last, okay? Start from the youngest.
Oh, I really think Sam's the right person to answer this.
About hardware?
Yeah.
I think we're going to find out that when there is this amount of upside and this amount of economic potential, humanity and capitalism are going to do some magic, and we're going to go far beyond the level of hardware we think is reasonable. Now, I've noticed there's sort of like two types of people in the world. When you tell people, you know, we can double the amount of compute power and make the model like a little bit smarter. It's like logarithmic scaling, but we're sure we can do it. There's people who say, that's amazing, like that's the best news I've ever heard. And then there's people who say, that's the worst news I've ever heard, like logarithmic scaling is awful. We're in the camp of it's the best news we've ever heard. So it is going to get tremendously expensive to keep doing this, but the value that we think will be created will more than justify it. And it'll be all of the things coming together. You know, each individual chip will get faster. We'll figure out how to network more of them together. We will be willing to like spend more to buy like many such clusters. And all of that will just be this relentless progress in terms of the total amount of compute in the world going to AI systems. In fact, I think if you think out decades into the future, there will be far more AI compute than sort of biological compute. And it doesn't face the same constraints, and we'll just keep going.
Yeah, your comments on I agree with what Sam said for the long term. Maybe comment a little bit on the short term, since I think this directly affects parts of the Taiwanese economy as well. So what I'm seeing is that over the last few years, there's been massive capital investments on GPUs for training large language models. And this is well and good, because I think we're in a research expansionary phase where many teams are coming with better ways to develop these models. So massive investments in the most powerful GPUs, you know, the A100s, H100s, AMD's MI250, MI300, which by the way are actually getting pretty good. So keep an eye on AMD as well. And then I think that for these capital investments to pay off, which I'm confident they will, we have to be doing more work on inference as well. So I see, you know, workload changing. Having said that, the amount we keep on pouring into training just keeps on growing, and that's why we spend so much investments on training, because the scale just keeps on getting bigger and bigger. So I think that would be an exciting shift. As just now Mark mentioned scaling laws. So my old team at Baidu had done some early work on scaling laws. OpenAI did fantastic research on scaling laws. There's this phenomenon that's, you know, really robust, that if you just make the down computers bigger and throw more data at it, it just gets better and better. And I don't think we've yet exhausted that recipe for making AI systems. And I remember 6-7 years ago, some folks in NVIDIA asked me, hey Andrew, you know, if we keep making GPUs faster, will people use them? I said, don't worry about it, just keep making them faster. We'll use all the compute. And I still feel that way today. If anyone has a way to just get us more compute, we will find a way to use them up.
Okay, Jane?
Yeah, I mean, certainly we can see the ChatGPT generative AI is a platform that will evolve over time. We also see vertical, right? Many verticals, like many, if you're talking about hospital verticals, field management verticals, even the mobility verticals, you are going to have a lot of personal assistants in all kinds, right? Some are image-oriented, some are data-rich environment, some even from sensors. Eventually will be multi-integrated, called the personal system level. I think that's going to happen. It's happening already. Yeah, it will more. Yeah.
Okay, so now we have a question from a small entrepreneur.
Yeah, I think we have one question from Appier. We got Zhi Han-Yu, the founder of Appier, here with us today. 佩欣的创办人，由志汉创办人。
Thank you all for a very inspiring Especially, I think OpenAI played a very important role, especially in generative AI part. So, love to hear all your opinions about the future growth of AI.
You know, let me share one thing that's annoyingly slow. I wish this is a bottleneck, and this is why when supervised learning started to work 10 years ago, it took us decades. It took us 1 decade, and we're still not yet done finding all the ways to apply it. Now that generative AI, thanks to Sam and others, are working really well, it will take annoyingly long to figure out all the things to which we can apply it. So one recipe that AI Fund has found, we like to find subject matter experts that deeply understand the domain to come to us with a concrete idea. So for example, the shipping example, that was when Ziyi came and they said, hey Andrew, you should apply AI to predict shipping fields and optimize shipping logistics. Now in contrast, we've learned to not engage if someone comes with a vague idea. Someone says, hey Andrew, you should apply AI to financial services. I'm not an expert in financial services, so I don't know what to do with that. So I think part of the process that will take us many years, much longer than I wish, I think it'll be this process of subject matter experts in all sorts of industries, learning a little bit about AI, and then developing those ideas, and then finding an AI build team and IT model teams to work with her to build them. There's one silver lining, which is because of the widespread attention on AI, I find that I do run into subject matter experts that know the industry and thought deeply about it for months or even 1 or 2 years, that sometimes already have a concrete idea, but they just never had a build partner to work with them. And when the AI team and they get together and we hear that idea, sometimes we can make progress really very rapidly. But because AI has to go into so many industries and so many applications yet, it's going to take us a long time to figure out and build those use cases. But so that's, I think, an exciting decade ahead of us.
Yeah. Comments on this subject?
Well, Andrew was saying it's important that customer or industry people come to you, right, and provide those opportunities. But we often see those cut across common issues. And those that's why we work industry in two different ways. One is common issues, and another one is vertical, specific issues. I think those common issues allow you to develop some areas nobody has done before, right? For example, we're trying different type of domain adaptation for high-speed application, for example. And, but of course, with specific issues, say, I'm working in aerospace. That's a very specific one. That's different. So I think both sides give us a good rethinking process, right? How to select, even optimize. Sometimes we develop competing algorithms, not only the best one, several good ones. They may work on different conditions. Not only one, several competing code. Yes. So I mean, it's interactive. Interaction with industry is very important to improve the AI development.
Okay. Sam, you agree upon what your advisors just said?
You know, in the first year on our platform, back in the GPT 3 days, I think there were $2 billion companies that got built like really on top of the platform. In the second year, there were a lot more, and in this third year, we've lost track. So it's really happening fast, like industry after industry, brand new startups, companies that have been around for a while. One of the most fun stories for us is like companies that have been around for a while, weren't working, were able to just plug in the API without a lot of technical expertise of AI. All of a sudden, it all started working, and like boom, they're like these massive companies. So the thing that I would say is it's not speculative, it's not about the future. About the future, like, no one knows what happens next. I believe that, we could all be wrong here. We could hit some research wall, or it could all go way faster than we think. But if we just talk about what's happening now, people are building incredibly valuable companies with products and services people love. And my very strong belief is that that is just going to accelerate every year.
Mark?
Yeah, I know you're both. Yeah, I guess I can talk a little bit about a slightly different dimension, like how do we accelerate generative AI from the research side? And I think from OpenAI's perspective, there's no one single bet that we put all the eggs in the basket. So we really kind of orient the company towards improving generative AI through this principle we call multiplication. And it's really everything coming together. Some teams work on architecture, some work on optimization, some work on data. We think all of these things multiplied together, it's going to be a big coefficient that's going to push generative AI.
Yeah, can I add to that? GPT-1 was basically a one-person project, pretty much. GPT-4 was our entire company, hundreds of people working together. Like, one thing we do differently from other AI efforts is we just try to say, we're all going to do this thing. You're going to contribute this way, you're going to contribute this way. Your thing might not work, that's fine. But we all kind of point at the same goal, and we try to get this multiplicative effect. And I think that is still very poorly understood about how progress gets made in the field. The idea starts small, but to really get them to work requires an enormous amount of coordinated effort, and it multiplies.
Okay. Now, the next question move to the healthcare domain.